The US has disregarded facts, maliciously smeared and accused China's legitimate and lawful actions to safeguard its rights, and even attempted to threaten China with a US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. This has once again exposed the US's ill intention of deliberately provoking confrontation and disrupting the South China Sea, and once again demonstrated that the US is the biggest source of risk to undermine regional stability. China firmly safeguards its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests, and insists that countries directly concerned resolve maritime disputes peacefully through negotiations and consultations. Any threats and provocations are futile and will never succeed. China's competent authorities have clarified its position on rare earth export control policies. China implements export controls on relevant items in accordance with the law in order to better maintain regional and global peace and stability and fulfill international obligations such as non-proliferation. This is also in line with international practice. China's position has been consistent and clear. Instead, the US side wants to talk while making threats and intimidation, imposing high tariffs and introducing new restrictive measures. This is not the right way to deal with China. We urge the US to correct its wrong practices as soon as possible and resolve relevant issues through dialogue and consultation on the basis of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. China's position on handling Sino-US economic and trade issues is consistent and clear. There are no winners in a trade war or a tariff war, and it is not in the interests of any party. The two sides should negotiate to resolve relevant issues on the basis of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. China's competent authorities responded to the relevant questions yesterday, which you can find here. We once again urge the US and relevant companies to respect facts and multilateral trade rules, abide by the principles of market economy and fair competition, correct their erroneous practices as soon as possible, and stop harming China's interests. The US's imposition of restrictions on Chinese airline operations is detrimental to personnel exchanges between the two countries and undermines its own interests. We have also noted that the American public has expressed widespread opposition to this. We support Chinese companies in safeguarding their legitimate rights and interests. China opposes the use or threat of force in international relations and opposes external interference in Venezuela's internal affairs under any pretext. China supports the proclamation declaring Latin America and the Caribbean a zone of peace and the statement by 33 Latin American and Caribbean countries on the establishment of a nuclear-free zone and opposes any undermining of peace and stability in the Latin American and Caribbean region. China consistently supports strengthening international cooperation and combating transnational crime. China opposes the United States' unilateral so-called law enforcement against foreign vessels beyond reasonable necessity, and calls on the United States to conduct normal law enforcement and judicial cooperation through relevant bilateral and multilateral legal frameworks. As a principle, China supports Chinese and European companies in conducting trade and investment cooperation based on market principles to achieve mutual benefit and win-win results. China opposes violating WTO rules, forcing technology transfer, interfering in the normal production and operation activities of companies, and taking protectionist and discriminatory practices in the name of enhancing competitiveness. I would like to reiterate here that China continues to oppose the generalization of the concept of national security and the adoption of discriminatory practices against enterprises from specific countries. Relevant countries should earnestly abide by market principles and refrain from politicizing economic and trade issues. China is firmly determined to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.